True leaders act without needing validation. This principle is fundamental to understanding why the chosen ones often find themselves walking alone. It is the very essence of what sets them apart from the masses. The chosen ones do not wait for others to tell them what is right or wrong. They do not need the applause of the crowd to reassure them of their worth. They lead not for praise, but because they are driven by something far more powerful. Purpose. Their actions are not dictated by external approval, but by an unwavering commitment to their own values, goals, and the vision they hold for the future. In the world we live in today, the desire for validation is rampant. People seek acknowledgement from others, be it from their peers, colleagues, or society as a whole. We live in an age where likes, shares, and comments have become the currency of approval. But true leaders, those who are chosen to make an impact and leave a legacy, understand that true power lies not in the external validation, but in the internal conviction that guides their action. They understand that while external validation may feel good in the moment, it is fleeting. It does not have the staying power to sustain them in the long run. The chosen ones recognize that the road to greatness is often a lonely one. It is one that requires decisions to be made without the reassurance of others. It requires strength to step forward in the face of uncertainty, to act even when no one is watching, and to continue moving forward even when the world doesn't seem to notice. When others are seeking approval, the chosen ones are already in motion, working tirelessly toward their goals, driven by something within themselves that cannot be swayed by the opinions of others. This is why the chosen walk alone. They don't need to follow the crowd. They are not swayed by the opinions of others because they trust their own inner compass. They act from a place of certainty and inner peace, knowing that their actions are aligned with their purpose. This doesn't mean they are impervious to doubt or fear. They too face the challenges of uncertainty, rejection, and criticism, but they have developed the inner strength to push past these obstacles. They don't need the approval of others to continue on their path. They are motivated by the belief that their actions, no matter how small, are part of something greater. True leaders act because they know that waiting for validation will only delay progress. They know that the road to success is paved with mistakes, failures, and setbacks. They understand that every obstacle they encounter is a lesson, a step closer to their goal. The chosen ones do not wait for the perfect moment or the ideal conditions to take action. They understand that perfection is a myth and that inaction is the only real failure. When the world tells them to stop, the chosen ones press on. When others question their decisions, they stand firm. They are not concerned with proving themselves to anyone else. Their only concern is fulfilling their mission. They know that true leadership is not about seeking followers, but about having the courage to walk alone when necessary. They understand that leadership is not about being the loudest in the room or having the most followers. It is about making decisions that align with one's true purpose, regardless of the opinions of others. The chosen ones lead because they are compelled by something greater than themselves. They are driven by the desire to make a difference, to create change, and to leave the world better than they found it. Their leadership is not about recognition, fame, or fortune. It is about making an impact that will endure long after they are gone. And they understand that this kind of leadership often requires them to walk alone for a time. They are not afraid of solitude because they know that in the quiet of solitude, they find the strength to continue on their path. True leaders understand that the value of their work is not measured by the approval of others. Their worth comes from within. They act because they are called to do so. They do not wait for permission or validation because they know that true greatness is achieved not by waiting for the world to give them recognition, but by boldly stepping forward in the face of uncertainty. The chosen ones walk alone because they are driven by purpose, and that purpose is far greater than the fleeting applause of the crowd. Your silence becomes powerful when fueled by growth. It is not the absence of words that stirs regret in those who once overlooked you, but the undeniable evidence of transformation. When you remove your energy, your time, your warmth, and place all of that into becoming something greater, your absence becomes louder than any confrontation. People do not regret you because you disappeared. They regret you because in your silence, you elevated. You stopped explaining yourself and started improving yourself. You no longer needed to prove anything because your life began to speak on your behalf. There is a rare kind of power that comes from restraint. The strength it takes to walk away without noise is not weakness, it is wisdom. Most people argue to be understood, to be right, to be remembered. But the truly chosen ones walk in silence and let the results of their discipline echo louder than words ever could. You make people regret missing you not by telling them they were wrong, but by showing them, without ever addressing them, how right you were to leave. Growth changes your energy. When you begin investing in your mind, your body, your spirit, your priorities shift. The things that once consumed you no longer even touch you. The people who once disturbed your peace no longer have access to you. Your energy becomes sacred. And when someone who once took that for granted sees you thriving, succeeding, glowing without them, that's when the silence hits hardest. That's when they feel the absence, not just of you, but of what they overlooked. Because silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. In fact, silence is where everything begins. Behind closed doors, when you're working, building, healing, and growing, that's where your new reality is born. And by the time those who counted you out look again, it's too late. You've already outgrown the version of yourself that needed their validation. You've already crossed into new territory, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, where their opinion no longer matters. The silence becomes the message. It says, I don't need your attention to shine. It says, I found myself without your approval. It says, I'm not where you left me. And that is a message louder than any words. Because regret doesn't come when someone tells you what you lost. Regret hits when you finally realize what you let go of. When you see it flourishing without you. When you grow in silence, you become undeniable. Your glow, your peace, your momentum, it becomes visible to those who once doubted you. But by then, you're not looking back. You're not waiting for recognition. You're not hoping they notice. You're simply moving in your purpose, driven by something deeper than revenge or validation. You're driven by the need to honor yourself. And that's what true transformation is. Not a loud announcement, but a quiet evolution. One that happens internally, but reflects externally. You don't need to tell anyone you've changed. You just keep showing up differently. You keep rising, you keep becoming, and those who once underestimated you will sit in silence, wondering how they missed the very thing they now long to return to. That is the quiet justice of growth. It doesn't seek to hurt, but it does heal. It doesn't try to impress, but it does inspire. And most of all, it doesn't chase, but it leaves a trail impossible to ignore. Because the person who once needed closure now needs nothing but clarity. And they've found it, not in explanation, but in evolution. This is how you make people regret missing you without a word. You choose yourself. You redirect all your energy inward. You become so focused on building, healing, and creating that by the time they realize your worth, you're living a life that no longer includes them. And in that silence, fueled by growth, you speak volumes they will never forget. Success is the loudest form of presence. When you stop explaining yourself and start elevating yourself, you enter a realm where your actions carry more weight than any conversation ever could. People may overlook you, misunderstand you, or even dismiss you. But when you channel that energy into growth, discipline, and achievement, they're forced to see you through a different lens. Your silence becomes the echo of success they can't ignore, and your presence, without ever needing to utter a word, demands recognition. There is something unshakable about a person who no longer needs to be seen, but instead chooses to build in the dark. You don't ask to be valued. You become so valuable that those who left, doubted, or ignored you are met with the undeniable evidence of your evolution. That's when the regret sets in, not because you said anything, but because they can see what you've become without their support. It's not revenge. It's not ego. It's simply the truth being revealed in its purest form. You rose regardless. Success isn't always about wealth or fame. True success is about becoming who you were meant to be, despite the odds, the critics, and the silence. It's waking up with purpose, pushing through the hard days and staying committed to your vision, even when no one claps for you. And when the results begin to show, when the confidence returns to your voice, when your energy glows differently, when your name comes up in rooms they never imagined, it all becomes clear. You didn't need them. They needed to see your light, to remember what they once had access to. This is the power of quiet success. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't demand respect. It earns it, moment by moment, in the privacy of relentless work and deep self-belief. You don't announce every step. You just arrive. And when you do, it's not your voice that turns heads. It's your presence, your peace, your progress, your results. They become the undeniable testimony of who you are becoming. People regret what they took for granted when it's no longer available. When the person who once gave so freely, attention, time, love, loyalty, suddenly becomes distant. And that distance is filled with growth, success, and purpose. It creates a void that words can't fill. You don't have to say, "Look at me now." Your life says it for you. You don't have to prove your worth anymore. You've already become the proof. Let your success be the response to the silence you once sat in. Let your wins, your calm, your transformation be the answer to every question they never asked. Don't argue your value. Don't chase validation. Just continue building, continue becoming, and eventually those who didn't see you will feel the weight of your absence, not because you asked them to, but because you outgrew the version of yourself that needed them to see it. There's a certain beauty in letting your life speak for you, in not trying to explain why you left, why you changed, or why you no longer respond. Because you don't owe anyone a narrative. You owe yourself peace, and success is peace manifested through purpose. It's the art of moving so intentionally, so unapologetically, that you no longer need permission to take up space. You simply do. And that's how you make them regret missing you, without bitterness, without games, and without noise. You live a life so full, so focused, that the silence surrounding your absence becomes deafening. Success becomes your voice. And in that voice, they hear everything they once ignored. They feel the gap left behind. They remember the presence they once had, and now no longer do. So, don't speak to be heard, build to be felt. Focus so deeply on your mission that the noise falls away. And when you arrive at the life you were meant to live, you won't need to look back, because the echo of your success will travel further than any words ever could. Elevation is the greatest response to being overlooked. When someone dismisses your value, misunderstands your vision, or takes your presence for granted, you don't need to retaliate with anger or explanation. You rise. You take every ounce of rejection and turn it into fuel. You use silence not as a retreat, but as a sanctuary where you sharpen your focus and deepen your resolve. The world may not always see your worth right away, but when you choose elevation over validation, your growth becomes impossible to ignore. To be overlooked is not the end. It's an invitation to go inward, to reconnect with your own power, and to build something so strong within yourself that no one can ever again question what you bring to the table. You'll begin to realize that you were never meant to stay small just to be accepted. And when that realization sets in, you rise. Elevation is quiet at first. It starts with small, consistent decisions. Waking up early, choosing discipline over comfort, refusing to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that never appreciated you. You let go of the need to be understood and instead commit to being undeniable. While others stay stagnant, waiting to be chosen, you choose yourself. You build in the silence, you improve in the shadows, and you prepare for the moment when your results speak so loudly that your silence becomes a statement. There's a certain kind of poetic justice in being overlooked and then excelling beyond anyone's expectations. You don't shout, you don't announce your next move, you simply rise, and as you ascend, those who once dismissed you are forced to watch from a distance. The regret they feel doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what you become. That is the art of silent elevation. It turns pain into progress, rejection into redirection, and absence into impact. This kind of growth doesn't just change how others see you, it transforms how you see yourself. You stop waiting for someone to recognize your greatness and start embodying it. You don't need applause to stay committed. You don't need company to stay consistent. And you certainly don't need closure to keep climbing. You develop a sense of self so rooted in purpose that the opinions of others no longer define your direction. Elevation isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about honoring the potential within you, even when the world hasn't caught up to it yet. And when that potential starts to manifest into reality, when the doors you once begged to be opened are now opening without effort, that's when the silence starts to echo. That's when those who overlooked you begin to feel the weight of what they missed. And that regret, born not from your words, but from your growth, becomes the loudest message you could ever send. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When you invest in your own development, when you speak to yourself with respect, when you act with intention and walk with dignity, you set a new standard. And those who once couldn't see your light must now squint to watch you shine from afar. They realize too late that your worth was never in question. It was their vision that was limited. So keep rising. Keep showing up when no one is watching. Keep perfecting your craft, nurturing your peace, and expanding your capacity. Don't get distracted by who's not clapping. The higher you go, the clearer it becomes who was never meant to rise with you. And when you reach those levels that once felt out of reach, you won't need to say a word. Your life will be the speech. Your success will be the answer. And your elevation will be the reminder that being overlooked was not your downfall. It was your launch pad. True power comes from self-mastery, not validation. The moment you stop seeking approval from others and start cultivating the strength within yourself, you step into a kind of power that no one can give you and no one can take away. Self-mastery is the ability to know who you are, what you stand for, and how to direct your energy with intention, no matter who is watching. It is the silent force behind every great transformation, the quiet discipline that molds a person into someone others can't ignore, even if they once did. Validation is fleeting. It is conditional, inconsistent, and often rooted in other people's insecurities and projections. When you live for it, you give away your power. You become a servant to external opinion, constantly shifting and adjusting yourself to please others. But when you turn inward and begin mastering your own thoughts, emotions, habits, and actions, something radical happens. You stop waiting to be seen, and you start creating a life that speaks for itself. That's when the regret begins for those who missed their chance to know the version of you that needed nothing but self-belief to evolve. To make people regret missing you without saying a word, you must first become someone they can no longer reach, not out of pride, but out of progress. Self-mastery is what builds that bridge. It teaches you to stop reacting to disrespect, to walk away from chaos, to detach from those who didn't value your presence. It is the quiet decision made every day to become a person of strength, clarity, and purpose. And as you grow in that silence, those who once overlooked you are left with the undeniable truth that you've outgrown the version of yourself they once knew. The process of self-mastery is not glamorous. It requires discipline in solitude, resilience in adversity, and vision in uncertainty. It means choosing growth over comfort, reflection over reaction, and purpose over popularity. You don't become powerful by trying to impress others. You become powerful by learning how to govern yourself. And when that inner power becomes visible through your actions, your progress, your peace, that's when the impact of your absence starts to hit those who never truly saw you. You don't need to tell people they lost you. You don't need to remind them of what they failed to appreciate. Your energy, once redirected into building and healing, does all the speaking for you. There's no louder message than someone who left quietly and returned unrecognizably better. The person who once needed validation becomes the one others now seek to validate. But by then you no longer need their applause, because you've already built your foundation on something far more solid, your own inner power. The more you master yourself, the less you need from others. You no longer chase closure, explanations, or recognition. You create peace. Give yourself understanding and move with the confidence that you are enough regardless of who acknowledges it. And in that state of inner fulfillment, you begin to radiate something that can't be faked, authentic strength. It draws attention without asking for it. It earns respect without demanding it. And it makes those who once dismissed you feel the loss of something they never truly understood. This is how you make people regret missing you, by no longer needing them to validate your worth. You don't yell, you don't chase, you don't remind, you evolve. You grow in silence. You refine your character, sharpen your purpose, and elevate beyond the noise. And as you continue to walk that path of self-mastery, those who once overlooked you will see exactly what they lost, not because you told them, but because your transformation made it impossible to ignore. The person who owns themselves, who leads themselves, who respects and believes in themselves without needing external confirmation, that person is unstoppable. And when you become that, you are no longer the one left behind. You are the one they remember, the one they regret, the one they wish they had seen before the silence became too loud. Self-mastery makes you unforgettable, not because of what you said, but because of who you became.